Brennan's View condos are presented by Irish Realty. Only a few luxury units remain. Tailgate on the Brennan's View's rooftop deck, just steps from Eddy Street Commons and the Notre Dame campus. Take advantage of a $2,500 buyer's upgrade package through the end of November. Check out brennansview.com or irishrealty.net.
What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, Mike Goolsby, and Tim Hyde will be with us in just a moment here with this week's Notre Dame football show, National Signing Day edition. And yes, it is brought to you by Brennan's View. We definitely appreciate the folks over at Brennan's View, sponsored by Irish Realty. Only a few luxury units remain. Tailgate on the rooftop deck, just steps from Eddy Street Commons in the Notre Dame campus. Take advantage of a $2,500 buyer's upgrade package through the end of November. Brennan'sView.com. All right, we got Mike Goolsby, we got Tim Hyde. Let's talk some Notre Dame National Signing Day. We do have a very special guest to get to in a bit, and that's none other than former Notre Dame quarterback and Irish legend Brady Quinn. So we'll hear from Quinn on some Notre Dame recruiting topics. But Goolsby, will go right to you. Kind of, I don't know how much you're able to pay attention, today with your busy work, but what did you take away from today so far?
It's Freeman's first year, right? And to piggyback off of this infamous semi-quasi argument that yourself and Tim had a few days ago in terms of, was it a good class? Was it a great class? How do we feel as a fan base going into Freeman's first signing day and now kind of coming out of it? I'm a little exhausted, Mike. I think it's nice to have it all over with. If I am, I know you are. But I'm a little disappointed. We didn't get a 5-star. You lost Keeley months ago, and it appears as though we've lost Peyton Bowen. But I think overall, I think the energy that Freeman brought, I think the consistency that he brought, the arrow's absolutely pointing up, fellas. And I think that Freeman will get better at this. Mike, during that kind of argument that you had with Tim, you would use an analogy about, you're trying to pursue a 10, you're trying to pursue a beautiful woman, right? I think he'd said, I'm 20 pounds overweight. I tried, I've asked her out a handful of times. I tried, and she said no. But I've been in sales my entire professional career. And Tim, you're an ex-military football coach, very black and white. And it's like, I have to win a customer. I have to. I know I'm going to. I just haven't figured out what button to push, what question to ask, etc. But I can't fail. It's my livelihood, right? And that's where you're kind of coming from with this, Tim. So I do think going into, recruiting cycles into the future, I think that Freeman will clean up his message and just continue to get better at it. I mean, He's still a young coach, but I think, Tim, the motor, Coach Freeman's motor on the recruiting trail, the DNA is there. And I think it's a great kind of platform and foundation to build off of. So I'm a little disappointed, but I think there are some difference makers in the class. Namely, we have a modern day elite quarterback, Tim. You've got a kid with a live arm, a kid that, we break down film potentially tonight that there's some deliverables. There's things to talk about outside of his intangibles, which is everything. So I give it a B+. If you put a gun to my head, I give the class a B+, taking everything into consideration. I mean, we're an 8-4 football team, Tim.
Yes.
To pull off a top 10 class, granted it is Notre Dame, but I'm proud of the work that Coach Freeman put in. These kids seem to get it, but I'll give it a B+.
But Tim, before you give your rebuttal there, as things stand right now, as we record this Wednesday night, Notre Dame currently is the number 8 class per the 2023 On3 consensus ranking. So that would be, believe it or not, Notre Dame's first time going back-to-back top 10 since 2013-14. That 2013 class, I think, was 3 or 4 in the country, number 4. And then the next year, 2014, finished 10. So for all this is just kind of finishing like a Brian Kelly class. Well, Notre Dame hadn't done that in a close to a decade. So I just wanted to point that out before you go, Tim.
Well, let me parlay off of exactly what you just said there, Mike. So Brian Kelly, between 2015 and 2021, did not have a top 10 class. That's many, many years in a row of no top 10 classes. His highest ranked class was number 11. And then now you have 2 straight years of Marcus Freeman being in the top 10. So, yeah, it's a kick in the pants, as you and I debated last week, when you lose a primetime prospect and whatnot. We'll get into that down the road, but it's, it's still some dudes in this class. I mean, I had a slow day at work, so I just started knocking down, I started thinking about, all these services that have been around for all these years. And I started looking at, okay, top 10 position rankings. Notre Dame had 14 players that were ranked in the top 10 by at least one service in their position. So we always talk national rankings and whatnot, but let's just go to the position where they rank. 14 guys. That's the most since the great class of 2013, which had 15 that were ranked in the top 10. You compound that on last year, which had 11. Brian Kelly never had that. So this is the most positional top 10 players 2 years in a row that Notre Dame's had since Charlie Weiss's great recruiting classes. So there's some dudes, and those, obviously Charlie Weiss had some guys that got Brian Kelly moving those first couple of years, that he was there, his first couple of years. So it's still, you talk, name, image, likeness, all these things a million times. When you really sit back and look at it, for Notre Dame to finish where they are with all these dudes ahead of them, SEC country, no, Notre Dame does not go into SEC country and get SEC dudes. They just haven't. If they do, it's a unicorn. Kyle Hamilton, or a couple here and there. It is rare. I posted on the message board this week. People were like, we got to get Florida. Great. You're going to get 3 stars. You're not going to get the dudes going to Bama and Georgia. They just haven't gotten those in a while. So for Notre Dame to be a Midwest, a Jersey, a couple places here and there, St. Louis has been great for them. They have back-to-back top 8 classes, something that hasn't been done since those 14 and 13 years of Brian Kelly's tenure. It's awesome. It really is. When you look at these players, there's a lot of elite dudes. This is the highest blue chip ratio of 4 stars since 2013, the highest since the Weiss era of 2008. So there are some dudes in this class, and people should be excited for the 24 that have signed.
I want to kind of address the elephant in the room of Peyton Bowen, the 5-star safety. So, look, if you're a blueandgold.com subscriber, or you sleuth Twitter and try to get the latest on Notre Dame recruiting, you've been following this saga, and it's been absolutely nuts. You go to bed thinking one thing, and you wake up, there's something different going on. So I really thought it was going to be Notre Dame, but Oklahoma was still very much on my mind as a potential flip. And then he goes and picks up the Notre Dame hat, puts it down at his little signing day announcement ceremony. Well, I don't know what you want to call this. And then picks up the Oregon hat. Meanwhile, his mom is about to, erupt with, excitement. I think it's pretty well known that Peyton Bowen's mom supports Notre Dame in this recruitment. And then you see the hands over the face, when he picks up the Oregon hat. I've been covering recruiting for a decade. I've seen these kind of things happen, but I've never actually covered one of these before. Especially this is my 4th cycle covering Notre Dame. I've never seen anything like this with an Irish recruit. But the thing is, guys, I keep refreshing this Oregon signee page. Ain't no Peyton Bowen on this thing. Jaden Lamar finally got on there. He flipped a few hours ago, which was to be expected, but no Peyton Bowen on here. So there is still, it's in the realm of possibility that he still ends up signing with Notre Dame or Oklahoma. I'd throw Colorado in there, Jackson State. What about UTSA? I don't know. Any school, there's nothing you can rule out at this point.
So I wanted to jump in.
Go ahead.
At what point? And I understand the fan base's frustration. I understand Oklahoma's frustration. I understand Notre Dame fandom frustration. At this point, hell, you'd understand the Oregon Duck fan base's frustration. But at what point and I've been close to like a 5-star-ish type kid, through my recruitment. At what point do you sort of start to feel for the kid? I mean, this kid's getting pulled in 3 different directions.
Yeah.
There's money involved. So where is he at right now? I mean, who is his circle? Is it parents, girlfriend, high school coach? I don't know. You'd like to think, you said his mom's a big fan of Notre Dame. Most moms are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way of things. So who's he sitting with right now? Because he has yet to, just to clarify, Mike, he's yet to put pen to paper and sign his 1-year scholarship agreement to go play for the Ducks. I would think, Tim, that he's already been, committed to Notre Dame. I think like this level of uncertainty that he's having, wouldn't that pull him just kind of like instinctually, doesn't it pull him back into the Notre Dame fold?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought he was going to sign with Notre Dame. I never bought all this other stuff because he's been committed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the craziness, Mike could get into this last weekend with the Oregon, the Oklahoma. Is he going to trip to Oregon? He never did. And he stayed committed. He never decommitted, kept in contact with the coaches, and as Mike's written about and everything. So he's always been committed. And I know you and I, Goolsby, always like to talk about that X factor in the background. I always thought behind the scenes, heck, this kid's smart as could be. He's created so much damn buzz about himself. Maybe has this been the plan all along in recruiting? Who knows in this day and age with money and recruiting and to get your name out there like crazy. I mean, he is the talk of.
He's a household name. He's a household name, hasn't played a snap of football yet. Yeah,
exactly. It's crazy.
So I think, we were talking about in terms of like Freeman's first real class, his fingerprints are all over it. This is a learning experience for Freeman and staff. So if a kid, do we want to start or continue to take early commitments from high level guys? Is that the best practice as a football program? So they're going to come out of this with a lot of experiential wisdom, and they'll probably do things a little bit different into the future with another high profile kid. Go ahead, Mike.
Freeman made a comment about this in the signing day press conference. That's what you're about to go to, Tim.
Yeah.
He said it's harder to decommit than it is to commit. I don't have the data in front of me, but this has to be the most decommitments Notre Dame suffered in a long time. Maybe not even suffered's the right way, because a couple of them were kind of like, the gentle nudges out, like, hey, we wish you the best. But it's what, 7 decommitments or so? That's a high number right there. Do want to mention super chats. We're not going to spend a ton of time on super chats, but we'll just read some of these real quick before we continue our conversation tonight. Truman says, just got home from work. Early birthday present. Happy birthday coming up soon. Who we signed, any flips to us and surprises? Yeah, I would say, no flips to Notre Dame. And then, Jaden Lamar flipped as expected. Peyton Bowen flipped his commitment, but don't know if, he will be flipping his actual signing. Joey says, top 8 class. Very excited about the future of the program. Mike and Mike looking sharp tonight. Joey appreciates all the super chats. He says, just my opinion, Peyton Bowen bring a lot of drama to Notre Dame from the whole announcement, not sending in the paperwork. I'm pretty sure the letter of intent is a DocuSign, Joey.
Yes.
So definitely appreciate the support and the super chats. Milton Fan says, without pay to play, Notre Dame is number 3 class considering evolving recruiting practices. I think Markstrom killed it. Without him, I think no chance. Peyton Bowen, agree with you there. And then blazing down her, we will get to your super chat a little bit later in the show. And if I forget, just please nudge me.
And I just want to say one more thing. Please. And I'm sure, gosh, Mike, I hope we fingers crossed we circle back to Peyton Bowen. Maybe he signs his NIL with ND, or we get some clarity here, some finality to it. But none of us have anything to do with this, just to be clear. So like the same people that were doing backflips when Peyton Bowen committed, people talk out of both sides of their mouth, right? They're pro Peyton Bowen. Now he's going to go elsewhere. Now they don't like the kid. Peyton Bowen doesn't owe any of us jack shit. Yeah. This is his life. This is his decision. Nobody's been in those shoes before, again, getting pulled so many different directions. So at this point, and again, I look at through the player's lens, I almost feel for the kid. I truly do. He doesn't strike me as, a bad character type kid that's playing all of us, but that could be true. I mean,
I was going to say real quick on that, Goolsby, is I've had kids in this situation that are like torn like crazy. What do I do, coach? And they're like, my mom's this, my dad's this, my uncle's this. I got 15, cousins telling me to go here, blah, 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 playing this Pac-12 school, whatever. And I'm like, you're the one that's going to be throwing up at 5:30 a.m. during winter conditioning. It's like, you're the one going to be getting your head kicked in. You're the one that if you miss a block on film session on Sunday is going to be getting chewed out. Who do you want to play for? It's like, what coach do you want to be with? Who's the one coach that you like out of these 5 official visits that you've been on? Where's the place that you see yourself 2 years from now, 3 years from now, getting developed? Who's going to train you the best? And I've always talked about that. Where do you want to be at 6 a.m. running, getting worked out, getting your butt whipped in the winter conditioning? And more times than not, the kids always go, with where they've always wanted to go. And it's like, your mom and dad aren't going there. They're just going up for a ball game and on senior day to get a flower. So the rest of it is your choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious to see what Brady's got to say about that entire conversation. But I will say this, if Peyton Bowen is playing all of us, if he's up there pulling on our heartstrings, I think one thing is damn near guaranteed, Tim. This kid's going to play as a true freshman wherever he lands. After all this drama, to keep him out of that portal, that kid's almost ensuring himself perhaps a starting role as a true freshman in somebody's secondary. I think that's inevitable.
I loved Freeman real quick on that, Singer, is, Freeman talked about this today on his, on his interview, his press conference, just, someone talked about, acquisition fees and paying and blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, it's crazy because if this is how, this is going here and there, it's like, yeah, if these guys don't play, and they got all this hype and all that stuff, are they going to leave after their freshman year? Just like you talked about, Goolsby, just doing a quick rough estimate on what Freeman said. But he kind of talked about that. Like, if you're coming here for Notre Dame because you want upfront cash, you're not coming to Notre Dame. So it was a really cool little couple minutes that Freeman got into this whole issue.
Oh man, yeah, the guys, this saga has been something else. There was an addition for Notre Dame today. I think it's gone very much under the radar because of all the Peyton Bowen stuff. It's Caleb Smith, the wide receiver from Virginia Tech, who I believe is the leading receiver for the Hokies this year, and is not a very good passing attack, but he was the bright spot. So that was a nice addition. Notre Dame actually got a preferred walk-on safety who picked the Irish over Oregon State, Washington State, Utah scholarship offers. So that's, he's not Peyton Bowen, but that's like a 5-star preferred walk-on. Like you don't get PWOs with Power 5 offers. So I got to interview the young man tonight, again, Luke Talek from Cody, Wyoming, and he told me that he just did not want to live his life with regret of what if I did go try to play for Notre Dame. I just didn't want that. He grew up a big Notre Dame fan, so I think that was so.
Are there rumblings? So this VTech receiver that we've got, are there rumblings that there's a link to Brennan Armstrong, the quarterback that's in the portal as well? Is that a thing?
Armstrong's Virginia.
I'm sorry, you're right. CTE, folks, it's real.
Goolsby, I love when you try to go through your little your conspiracies. Not that would have been a conspiracy. That would have made a lot of sense, but
Hey, Caleb Smith, he's a good football player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a darn good football player. Big physical receiver, like that Miles Boykin type of guy. Big, strong, Javon McKinley type guy. So he's
a jump ball kid. Yeah.
What's that?
I was going to say he's kind of a jump ball kid, 50-50
exactly.
ball
Big,
guy.
physical. And I think his interview, maybe Mike did or whatnot. I saw something where he talked about Reese was watching film and he was like, who the heck's this guy? And then saw he's a senior, put him on the list. You never know. And sure enough, here he is at ND. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, we're going to hear from Brady Quinn in just a few minutes, but we will continue on with National Signing Day discussion. And we'll go to Tim on this, put you on the spot. When you look at the top 10 classes here, and we'll go in order from 1 to 10 for podcast audience. You got Alabama, Georgia, Miami went from I think like number 10 to number 3 in the past week. They really have shot up. You got number 4 Texas, 5 Ohio State, 6 LSU, 7 Oregon. They've obviously surged and have 31 players committed in their class, which is a high number. You got Notre Dame there at 8. Notre Dame entered the day 5. Bowen was their highest ranked player, so him decommitting obviously made a big impact. Lamar's decommitment did not really make an impact at all. Oklahoma 9, and then Florida 10. 10. So Tim, when you see this, what's your reaction?
Well, real quick, Georgia must have had a 5-star recently, because I saw earlier, just a couple hours ago, I saw that they didn't have a 5-star, and they were basically just one off with Notre Dame. Like, Notre Dame's got 24 stars, Georgia's got 21. Georgia's got 4 3-stars, Notre Dame's got 5. You know what I mean? So they're like right there. So here's Notre Dame class and Georgia class basically tied with 4s and 5-stars. And I mean, they must have just gotten a 5-star in the last few hours. I haven't paid attention to, I haven't been online or anything. So, but overall, it's crazy because these scores are like minuscule.
Yeah.
They're like fractions of a percent, you know, which is great in the stock market. But you know, when you're ranking classes, who knows? I would like to dive into. Well, I won't dive into it because I already looked at Alabama's. You don't want to see their blue chip ratio.
Oh, no, Tim, let me stop you. Someone on our message board made this chart.
Oh yeah,
this is amazing. This
great.
is Alabama's blue chip. This is all the schools' blue chip ratio, which means it's just the percentage of 4 and 5-star recruits you sign. So if you sign, it's 8 4-stars and 1 5-star out of 10 players, right? 90. That's 90%.
Yeah.
Look at.
Oh yeah, someone was talking about Alabama. I actually posted their last 10 years. I was like, just don't look at this, and it's like it's ridiculous. How many dudes they get.
When you look at Notre Dame, especially, so this one's the score, right? The on-3 gets sets a score, which we can just explain at a different time. The Notre Dame's in this little heat map is a lot different than, you know, a lot of these schools to the left here. Your Alabama, your Georgia, your Ohio State, your LSU. It's a lot more white and red than it is green. Notre Dame has been kind of punching above their weight level a little bit, I would say. I would argue. And now if you're talking about 77 and 79 are the norm for blue chip percentage rate, you know, that's pretty good.
Without a doubt. I mean, obviously, I mean, you've been around these rankings forever, Mike, and recruiting and whatnot. So many of these recruits now are down south. They just are. It's huge. You know, the South and the rankings. You know, the Midwest is dipped a ton. Ohio, New Jersey, when I was growing up, and Mike was as well. It's like Ohio, New Jersey were always in the top 5 of Division I caliber prospects. Illinois was always up in the upper echelon as well, because Chicago would just crank out guys. Now a lot of it is down south. So yeah, Notre Dame punching above its weight a little bit, as you could see. It's like, well, with Brian Kelly, I mean, look how many years, 70%, by the way, the guys that do these blue chip, I forgot his name on the 247 network when he started this 5-6 years ago, but 70% is elite. He's considered elite. So you got Notre Dame back-to-back years, elite classes. So if he just keeps working this thing, it's huge. Ohio State's always up there because Mike knows it's easy to get in Ohio State. So there's, it's very easy, and it's a football school, and there's not a lot of guys have to take calculus in their freshman year to go to Ohio State. And that's,
well, I think it's a couple of things. It'd be fun. It'd be a fun conversation to talk about ball in the South.
Yeah.
And it's the speed of the game. I think there's a socioeconomic piece to it where these kids need football. We talked about that, Tim, I think that's a big element of it, but the game's played at a different pace. I think it's more important down there. But in terms of those, the blue chip ranking, all that green you see in Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, there's a direct corollary to first round picks.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's not like that's a Captain Obvious type statement, but a top 10 player coming out of high school genetically is a first round pick. That equates to being a first round pick, just in terms of like they're a different animal entirely in terms of their God-given ability, right? So the more first round picks that we start to see and we start to put out, you're going to see more green in those columns. It's just the way it goes. It's just round and round. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get top 10 recruits, they end up in the first round. We get more of them. It's just the way it goes.
Well, it goes back to Freeman. Just, I mean, people may want to be negative and stuff like that, and with the classes, but it's like when you really wrap these first two around, especially this first one, it's like they're good football players in this class. And I've said it 1,000 times with Singer is year two to me is the main one where he's got his foot in the door, he's got his contact, his assistants are out there working, they got all their things. Year two, traditionally, Bob Davie had a better year two. Willingham, Brian Kelly. I truly think 2024 is going to be better than this class. I just do, as they continue to work out the kinks. And you said something, Goolsby, earlier about Freeman talked about it today in his press conference where they're going to evaluate everything. Why did a kid choose Notre Dame? Why did he leave Notre Dame last second? They're going to pound into each and every prospect that they recruited, going back to your point of, do we want to waste our time going down to Tampa on a 5-star where he's got SEC country? Is it worth it? Or do we go find Isaiah Foskey, who is ranked 202, same type of football player, first round draft choice talent. So, and he's still a blue chip, still a 4-star.
Couple more thoughts on that. ND needs a bigger staff. We've talked about this off air, Tim. ND needs a bigger support staff in terms of finding some of those needles in the haystack and kind of verifying those needles in the haystack. And then what Coach Freeman had said today, we're going to go back once all this dust settles and we're really going to reassess ourselves and do some self-scouting and get better on the recruiting trail. Whereas in years past, specifically under Coach Brian Kelly, we would have been like, he's just not a Notre Dame guy, not a Notre Dame fit. So we put that loss on the kid versus, again, putting it on ourselves as a staff to say we could have done better, we could have done something differently, ask another question, what have you. So again, I love the accountability from Freeman. I'm still big on that. I love it. And I don't think his energy has waned. I just think he's going to become a little bit more sophisticated as a recruiter. And the arrow is absolutely pointing up.
I agree.
All right. Well, Tim, we'll get you back on the show in a little bit. But yeah, me and Goolsby will have a chat in just a few moments with a former Notre Dame quarterback, Irish legend, Brady Quinn. But first, folks, let's go over and hear from our friends at Rogue Shop. Check out rogueshop.com if you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, anxiety, stress. Look, folks, Rogue Shop sells CBD, edibles, THC, tinctures, smokables, bath salts, pain creams, topicals. There's vapes, candles, soaps, anything that you could be interested in this realm, Rogue Shop has it. They handcraft all of their topicals, grow their own cannabis in their manufacturing facility, and all their products are made with cannabis. The website has a 24/7 chat function where customers can ask the owners anything. Visit rogueshop.com. Again, folks, that is rogueshop.com. And when you use promo code Bloom and Gold, that'll get you 10% off your order. Again, folks, rogueshop.com. Use that promo code Bloom and Gold. All right, let's go ahead and bring in former Notre Dame quarterback Brady Quinn to the show. Bring in former Notre Dame quarterback, Irish legend Brady Quinn to the show. Brady, really appreciate you joining us to talk some Notre Dame football recruiting and all things really Notre Dame football, but definitely want to start with the quarterback of the class, the Fighting Irish signing, 4-star Kenny Minchey from the Nashville area, All-American quarterback, someone I know you're familiar with, Brady, and watching his tape. Just, when you watch his film, what do you think the Irish are getting here, Brady?
Well, one, a very, polished passer, extremely accurate. Some of the downfield throws, as you see right there. A guy who I think could really operate well within Tommy Rees's offense. But he's also some escapability, some kind of that creativity that you need to extend plays and make plays now in today's game. It's so much more of a spread out game, and you've got to have the ability to improvise at times and throw under duress. But there's another example of just the kind of the downfield throwing game, which he seems to excel at, at least at the high school level, and we'll see how that transfers into the college level. But again, a guy who I think, you go back, you watch these kids nowadays come out of high school, and Ghouls, I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are. They're so much more prepared, than I was. I go back and sometimes see some of the tape. I'm like, gosh, I was so raw. I needed more, coaching and technique and fundamentals and things. And these kids just come ready to play. I mean, like the last thing you're really concerned about is their fundamentals, their throwing motion, like any of that. It actually now is because of the way spread offenses are taught at the high school level. And that is pretty much what dominates a lot of these high school offenses. It's more teaching them football. It's like teaching them like verbiage. It's teaching them fronts and coverages and all those things. And maybe even how to read stuff differently than what they were taught previously. So it's almost more of the mental approach to the game than it is the actual physical.
Brady, when you were coming out, did you have a quarterback coach or anything like that at the high school level?
Yeah, so I worked with an old Ohio State quarterback, Greg Fry, if you remember the name. And he had ended up taking a head coaching job at, I believe, Bexley around the time that I was entering into college. But I'd worked with him probably starting in junior high and then making my way up into the college ranks in the high school. The tough thing for me was I was a pitcher, I was a catcher, I was a quarterback. So you kind of had this variety of throwing motions that you were trying to kind of, I guess, technically tune up about, half the year. Obviously your pitching motion is incredibly different than anything else you do with a football. You're throwing as a catcher is much more similar to what you're going to be asked to do as a quarterback. But once I started to get 6'3", 6'4", had long legs, man, it got hard on my knees. And I was just like, I'd rather play like pitch, outfield, DH when I get the opportunity. So, it was helpful. But even at that time, some of these kids have specialized now to the point where when they're in elementary school, they're getting that sort of tutelage early on, and they've got that motion ironed out by the time they hit high school.
Yeah, it's funny you mention your long legs. Long legs. I can remember going back to you were under center with Johnny Sullivan.
Oh man,
you're ass to grass trying to get that snap. But
that's because he had the shortest legs for anyone who's 6'3" in the history of the world. I mean, I will never forget.
Oh sure, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, if he was like 200 yards away from you, he looked like a small man. Like he looked like he wasn't 6'3" because of how short his legs were and long his torso. And then as he walked up towards you, like, oh, this is a big human being. But I'll never forget. That was the first thing I think Charlie Weiss did when he got there. He was like, Sullivan, you got to change your stance. You got to stop squatting down so low. You're gonna have to get your butt up. So
yes,
that helped me a ton.
What we used to call him, the world's tallest little person.
Yes, I believe at one point that was mentioned in the locker room at some point.
Yeah, but I mentioned the quarterbacks coaching because it's like, I'm 40 years old, Brady, right? So I came out 20 plus years ago, and that era of quarterbacking, you wanted that statuesque, kind of that beautiful fluid throwing motion. And anymore, and you mentioned kind of that escapability, that aspect of modern football.
Yeah.
Like if you're statuesque in that pocket, I mean, you almost can't play the position anymore. It's like teach the kid the fundamentals of coverages and reads, and then let that athletic ability take over. And I think you see a lot of that with Minchie.
Well, even the different arm angles and off-platform throws. I mean, those are things that are now taught. I mean, I recall working on a 3, 5, 7-step drop, understanding how to throw with timing and anticipation in certain routes. Nowadays, you're looking at guys who don't even have their feet set. And they're making throws like right here, for example, kind of drifting and throwing downfield, almost cross his body. I mean, those are things these young men practice now and they're taught. And by the way, I'm not saying that, I'm not a proponent of that. I think when you practice some of that, then it does become foreign in a game and you realize like, oh, I can do this if the situation calls for it. So I'm all for it. That's kind of being a gamer and being a player. And I think a lot of, what's being required or asked of the quarterbacks at this level now has a lot to do with, again, the game being more spread out. But honestly, a lot of times just the fact that the offensive line isn't able to hold up quite as well. I mean, the athletes across from you on defense are so much better and faster than they've ever been that I think offensive linemen are at a huge disadvantage. And especially when 80% of the time they're moving lateral or backwards instead of downfield, and they're not being as offensive as they should be and running the football like they used to back in the day, which is one of honestly the differences I think you see at Notre Dame, right? With the way they try to run the football and how Harry Houston and Tommy Rees like to implement the ground game is bring back that physicality and teach those guys how to prepare for the NFL. And it's one of the reasons why I think you look at a guy like Kenny Minchie and you go, why is Notre Dame an easy sell as a quarterback? Because we run an NFL style system. You're going to be prepared to play in the NFL as you go through Notre Dame, aside from the education and everything else that comes along with that.
Sure. Yeah. I think so much of it comes down to, like you had said, I mean, there is no platform to throw off of. And some of this comes down to God-given gifts. Like you've got to have that live arm to throw off that back foot. But yeah, Brady, building off the quarterback position, were you quite a 5-star coming out of high school? I mean, you
I was
were
a
up there,
four-star.
right?
I was a
Okay,
four-star.
high 4-star, we'll call it. What is it with Notre Dame, being X number of years removed from the program? What is it about us in recruiting the quarterback position? Maybe it was a Brian Kelly era thing. Why haven't we, through your purview, like why haven't we been able to land a Dante Moore type high 5-star, just elite quarterback? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a number of things, right? Like you have to be looking for the right combination of things as a quarterback. Everyone values different things. For me, it was football at the highest level, education, all those things. I do think Kenny Minchie's a kid who obviously values that. You look at guys like CJ Carr, who's committed for the 2024 class, right? A Michigan man, his grandfather recruited me at Michigan. He sees the value in Notre Dame and everything else that comes along with that. He's a stud, right? Both these guys. So it just takes, maybe a different approach to it, where what you see with how Marcus is recruiting Kenny or how he's recruiting CJ, as the head coach, as compared to what was done before with Brian Kelly. I mean, the things that seemed to circulate was the fact that, he wouldn't have been out there like Marcus Freeman's been right after the season ends, in between bowl game and all that, out there recruiting his tail off, seeing every single commitment, every single guy. That just wasn't something that he was going to do or even did. So, there's a big difference there, I think, when you have that personal connection as a head coach with your quarterback, because you are the two that are really ultimately going to either make or break or handle the adversity that comes along with being the quarterback and being the head coach of Notre Dame. It's really those two positions that seem to get the most attention and focus. So, I can't speak for what happened and why not over Brian Kelly's time there. I have the utmost respect for Tommy Rees and his scheme and how he is able to scheme to get guys open and find ways of maximizing the strengths of a lot of the guys on the roster. It's something where, I get to go to the combine as part of my work that I do for Fox and CBS. And, you talk to some of the coaches there in those circles, and they love Tommy. They love Notre Dame guys, especially you talk about offensive guys who are coached the right way, are in the right system that they can immediately plug in and play, and they know what to expect. So, I think for any quarterback out there, you'd want to look at Notre Dame and say, this is going to prepare me in every facet, playing in bad weather, playing in some of the toughest competition and independent schedule, all of that. And the national focus and attention. I mean, this is no disrespect to the Cleveland Browns, but I remember getting to Cleveland and thinking, like, this is the NFL, but I felt like my press conference during the week in Notre Dame were bigger, at least in more a national perspective as far as the attention we got.
Yeah, in your era, no doubt. How do you look at college football now? Is there a part of you that looks at it through the lens of a player, or have you completely moved over to the dark side and you look at it through the lens of the media?
I look at it as – I have to professionally look at it through the lens of the media. I do look at it as through the lens of a father. That's what I am now. I look at it through the lens of an almost 40-year-old man, right? I'm 38 years old now. And I think I look back on all of my experience as a player who got to the NFL and played for, going into 8 seasons and, getting into all of that. I kind of look back on it now with a perspective of valuing, I think, what Notre Dame stands for after football more than ever. And I think the older I get, the more I appreciate that. As a parent, the more I appreciate that. I get to travel to different college campuses every single week for my job at Fox with Big Noon Kickoff. And, you get to see a lot of pretty places, a lot of special places, different schools, and they have different ways of doing it. And I always think back on my time in Notre Dame and think it's so unique. It's so different. It's so special. In comparison to everywhere else I've been. So I look at it from that perspective. I think the problem is right now we're operating college football like a professional sport, but we don't want to acknowledge that, especially now with NIL, especially with the transfer portal, which to me, creating 2 windows, that's a step in the right direction. But being able to have the ability to transfer in an unlimited capacity is absurd. I mean, JT Daniels is going to be on his 4th school now playing at Rice. I mean, with the additional year of eligibility from COVID that some of these guys had, it really is ridiculous to think that there is just no more true commitment. It seems like it's a year by year thing. And I think it's going to test which programs have the most culture and have the best foundation built to be able to not be enticed to want to go to the portal every single year to recruit a roster, because you're bringing in, some guys who obviously want to be there, want to play there, but by and large, maybe for the wrong reasons. And so I just look at where we're at, and I think we need more framework. I hate the fact that the NCAA, who now has at least tabbed their next president, is going to look to the federal government to figure it out. It's like, okay, that's fine. But once you create law, then you're going to create lawsuits, right? Because with that, people are going to challenge whatever law is created. And so it just becomes more convoluted. It becomes more difficult to really figure out that path. But I do think from the player's standpoint, it's a step in the right direction. Name, image, and likeness is something that, everyone's been taken advantage of for a long time at the college football level. And it's sad that the NCAA, unfortunately, didn't have the foresight and the leadership to see this coming and do a better job of preparing everyone for, I think, where we're headed in the next 5, maybe 10 years.
Brady, I really wanted to get into the NIL. So through your perspective, kind of twofold question. When NIL was created, Brady, what was it supposed to be? And then beyond that, what has it turned into?
Yeah, I think the initial thought to NIL was more along the lines of what you see with Olympic athletes. And this is something that I've gotten a chance to know pretty well. My wife obviously was in the 2008 Olympics, and she originally was competing at Brown University before she ended up coming back out of retirement to go train for the Olympics. So it's for that 2008 Olympics. And you kind of look at the Olympic model and you say, well, why were these individuals not able to profit off their name, image, and likeness for marketing money, but yet still compete at the collegiate level, even though they're representing our country? Like, it really never made any sense. And for some of them, like Jeremy Bloom, who I got close to back during my time training in the NFL, and when we were both playing in the NFL, he was like, dude, I couldn't afford to be an Olympic mogul skier and a world championship mogul skier and not take some of these dollars. Like, skiing's expensive. And by the way, gymnastics is expensive. They'll pay for your athlete to go over. They'll maybe even help out with the parents, but the parents don't even get paid for. Like, they have to pay their own way. So imagine some of these trips where they're competing in Beijing or they're over, somewhere in Europe. And this is happening every year. It's an expense that's hard for a lot of parents to endure. And so I think that was the initial intent, to be able to help student athletes, take advantage of the platform that they've created for themselves and make some additional capital. I think what the problem is, it's not NIL, it's the transfer portal. And it's the fact that we don't have a governing body and we don't have any rules in place to, limit tampering, right? Where you have coaches who are, for example, offering a player on a roster after a game $1 million to come over and play for that school. That kind of stuff is going on right now, and it's nuts. And it's because these coaches feel emboldened, because what's the recourse? There is no
Wild West. It's Wild West. So hypothetical, Brady, you knock off Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh's coach comes over to you. Hey, Brady, great game. Hey, by the way, we got $1 million waiting for you. Brady, what does that mean? When they say, $1 million, Peyton Bowen's getting $2 million, step by step, logistically, as much as you can say or is comfortable saying, what does that mean?
It means absolutely nothing. Okay. Like, I can assuredly tell you, it means absolutely nothing. Go ask Jordan Addison if he was happy last year when he got to USC and what was promised to him and what ended up being the case.
Got it.
That's one player in particular that I think it's interesting, that current events right now with Pat Narduzzi being very open about Drake May, who's not his quarterback, right? Drake May, the quarterback in North Carolina, has been offered $5 million from a couple of teams that he's making very aware. You kind of sit back and wonder, well, who are those teams? Like, who's losing a quarterback to eligibility or the NFL draft that would maybe be looking to lure over a quarterback who's going to be the first or second pick in the 2024 draft in Drake May? Wonder who that could be. And look, I'm not saying it's necessarily the football programs. It could be the collectives that are tied into that. The problem is just there's no real checks and balances as to how to limit that stuff or eliminate that. And by the way, I'm not naive enough to say that doesn't happen to the NFL level. We talked about the combine earlier. You get agents who walk around all the time that have to go talk to a team. Oh, guess what? A guy who's going to be a free agent coming up happens to be in Indianapolis, because, St. Elmo's is a great steakhouse. We all know that. That cocktail sauce, boy, it's hot. Just so happens to bump into his agent, who happens to be talking to a team that might be interested in him in free agency, right? Like, it happens in the NFL all the time. It's just, It's very rarely caught, and they have rules in place to really penalize you if you do get caught. You'd like to see that stuff in the college football world, but it's just going to be so hard to govern. I mean, you're talking about, thousands of student athletes and hundreds, if not thousands of coaches that could be potentially doing this at any point in time. And there's all types of different ways they're doing it. So to go back to the initial question, what does it mean? Absolutely nothing. For some of these collectives, they're probably, at least from what I understand, they're offering these kids guarantees, illegal. They're offering these kids signing bonuses, illegal. They're offering them opportunities to earn money off their NIL, which there's nothing wrong with that. But how it's stated within the NCAA guidance is you have to do the work in order to get paid. And if you're getting a signing bonus or even an advance payment, that's not how this is structured. Mm-hmm. So the other wiggle room or way around it that some is happening out there with some places is, agencies are signing up these kids and they're giving an advancement. And then they're kind of backloading in some of these, other deals or corporate sponsorship and NIL deals they're finding for them after the fact, just to entice them to be a part of it. And that's something that's, supposed to be forbidden even at the NFL level, but, in the recruitment for draft prospects. But again, that stuff's been going on for a while now. It's just trickling now down to the college football level. So, I'm not saying that you can't necessarily pay a kid that. You just have to be able to have it structured in the proper way that abides by the NCAA guidance as well as the state law until there's federal law.
And it's got to be enforced, yes.
Well, I mean, you've got to have your checks and balances for it. Like, you've got to have your compliance. You've got to be paying taxes on that money. That's one of the things too, is like a lot of these young men don't understand. When someone offers you $1 million, $2 million, guess what? You cut that in half. You're now in the top tax bracket. Say hello to the federal government. So that's one thing too that I think is kind of misunderstood in all of this, is just the educational piece to this, not only for the player but their parents as well.
Naturally,
and I think the three letters that should be more important to these young men than NIL is NFL, and that's really where they're going to make life-changing, generational-changing money. Not with NIL money. Like, that's not going to change their life. That's just going to make them comfortable. That's going to help out their family or whatever issues they're doing, and allow them to be able to, make some money off of that at the college level. But some of the valuations you see out there online are wildly overvalued, thrown around, I think, for more clickbait and to serve whatever entity that is, whether it's a website or something else, to serve their best interest.
Got it. We got you for a few more minutes. So we're coming to you on signing day. If you were to give like your average, a top 300 player, Brady, coming out, Uncle Brady, what would your advice be to a kid coming out and when he's trying to make in the gold rush kind of NIL era? What's your advice?
I'd be wary, and this is no different than when I was being recruited, right? Like, the thing that attracted me, or one of the things that kind of sold me on Notre Dame, outside of the education and the feeling when I got there and all that, was, Tyrone Willingham was honest with me. He didn't guarantee me anything. The only thing he said to me was, the only guarantee I'll ever make to you is you'll have a chance to compete to start. And I was like, man, that's the most honest thing anyone said to me this entire process. And I felt like, he built that trust with me. I think that's one thing that Marcus has been doing with a lot of the guys he's recruited. He's building that trust. He's not blowing hot air. He's not offering them a bag full of money, all this stuff. Like, none of that's being thrown out there. And I think it's real. It's genuine. It's one of the reasons why the team was so excited when they hired him. So, my advice to, and it's not just the players, it's the parents out there. It's, prioritize, what you want most, not what you want right now. And so what you want most is for your kid to have a chance to go play in the NFL, to be developed to go play in the NFL, have a chance for them to win a national championship, have a chance for them to be able to receive a top of the line education. Notre Dame does all those things. And then also, if you excel, if you succeed, you're going to be able to make a lot of money off NIL at Notre Dame. There's nowhere like Notre Dame. There's nowhere with the national exposure. So all those things are going to be out there for you as well. But that really can't be the driving force, in my opinion. And I think if it is, then you're going to find yourself potentially back in the transfer portal. You're not going to be able to build up that foundation to rely on later on in life. And, an alumni network, a group of friends, like all those things, that support system that I think you're going to need, whether you go on and have a successful career in the NFL or not. That's way more important. It's hard to put a value on that, but it's way more important than I think anyone understands.
Brady, last thing before we get you out of here, what have you seen from Marcus Freeman on the recruiting trail? Large part of him being hired was because of the recruiter he is. What have you thought in his first full cycle so far?
He's present. I mean, really, he's present. He's out there. He's showing face. You see him like time and time again. He's in living rooms left and right. I sit there and just marvel at, the ability to do that. Obviously, just coming off of a season, preparing for a bowl game, having all of that, yet you're still out there recruiting, having these conversations, getting to know these young men who are eventually going to come play for you. Not everyone can say they're able to do that, the same way he is. In fact, I don't think we could say that with our previous head coach. So, the way he's been able to do it, to me, has been the most, impactful thing. Like, there's no more valuable asset on this planet than time. And he's taking time away from his family, away from everything else, to spend it with these recruits and show them how much he cares.
All right. That's former Notre Dame quarterback Brady Quinn. Really appreciate you joining the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Go Irish.
All right. There you had it. Brady Quinn talking. Mike Goolsby, what'd you think about our time talking with Mr. Quinn?
Just good to catch up with Brady. Yeah, he was a teammate of mine, a couple of years behind me at school. I can't tell you how proud I am to know the guy. I mean, Brady's just one of those like exceptional type people. I could see Michael Mayer, post football being in kind of that role. I'm grateful for Brady for being such an advocate for Notre Dame and he's not bashful about it either. Kind of goes to war for ND in the media. And I love that. And I'm very grateful for him. So it's good to catch up with him. And I missed a call from another former teammate today that I'd like to kind of bring back into the Notre Dame fold. Big fan favorite. So hopefully we'll do more of this in the future. So first of many, hopefully.
Tim?
Yeah, just listen to, awesome interview. Just listen to Brady. The first thing I started thinking about is why Marcus Freeman got hired. I just kept thinking about that the entire interview. And then right at the end of what Brady had to say, and, it's talking about, he brought up the word culture. Marcus Freeman's trying to build that. He's building trust out there on the recruiting circuit with, players and families and things of that nature, even with his own team. I think, that's going back to Drew Pine, right? He was honest and open with Drew Pine, like, hey, we're going to bring a guy in, another quarterback. So you're hearing those things. And then I'm sitting here taking some notes. Culture. I love what Brady Quinn said about the NFL is where your money's at, not NIL, not, signing autographs down at the local, liquor store is not the key, working at the YMCA or wherever, cool things like that. If a guy gets a $500,000 check, is he going to get it as soon as he shows up? As Brady Quinn says, there's so much, crap that's going on out there. It's ridiculous. But I love that. And it goes back to, I feel like, literally, I just wrote this down the night we all talked about when Marcus Freeman got hired. I wrote, he's a former 5-star cut by the NFL, gets it, played at the highest level. Ohio State played for 2 national championships. And it's almost like, the more going back to Marcus Freeman's press conference today, I had a chance to listen to it real quick. And it's like, he does get it. And Brady Quinn mentioned that, like, he understands all these things because he's lived that life. And he's like, take it from me, listen to me. And then lastly, just goes right back to the class this year. They lost out on some guys. There's a couple big position hits I feel that they didn't get, but they got a lot of dudes, man. They got 80% blue chip in this crazy era. They got dudes, as you know, Mike, that have a lot of SEC offers that could have went to SEC schools, and they're going to Notre Dame. And I think it's from what Brady Quinn talked about, that trust factor.
Yeah. Talking about Freeman's class and kind of talking about Freeman as a recruiter, I made some notes and I think actually, Mike, you and I got a super chat last time you and I were together, and somebody asked, what is the biggest difference between Freeman's first class to classes prior to Kelly's classes? And I was like, let me put a pin in that. It was a great question. My answer, when I really look at these kids, Tim, when you really dive into their film, these kids compete their asses off, right? It's just a different level of compete. I hit up Drake Bowen on Twitter, just like, hey, man, congrats. Big fan of yours. Love your film. Love the way you play in particular. These kids are a little bit more showy, a little bit more boisterous. And I really think that's something that we need to really heavily sprinkle over our football culture. In that kind of brotherhood that Coach Kelly had created. You're getting more badasses in kids that kind of know it and kids that kind of show it. I can't wait to see that sort of show itself on the field in future Saturdays. But that's a big difference for me. Is like kids play harder, kids are a little bit more confident. And in traditionally speaking, Tim, those wouldn't be, Notre Dame fits, right? Brian Kelly a lot of times is recruiting choir boys. It's like these kids can do the homework. They come from good families. They've got great backgrounds, etc. And by the way, they'll kick your teeth in, and I'm here for it. You can just see it with this class.
Let's get to a few super chats real quick. Shy Sandman, really sorry we couldn't get to your super chat while Brady was with us, but definitely appreciate the support. And either you guys have any comments on Notre Dame's NIL program before we move on?
I think it's always going to develop. I think the way Notre Dame approached it with that fund program was what NIL is intended to be. Yeah. Each kid on the team gets a certain dollar amount, but they have to go out and earn it in the community. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think the kids will grow from it. I think the actual players grow from it by serving the community. So I think that's a really solid base. I don't know if it'll get kicked into overdrive, fellas, until we start to get outpaced in terms of like the football field. Like, I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but like look at the top 10 list this year versus last year. So Texas A&M was throwing money at kids. They're not even in the top 10 this year. They were number 1 last year, right? Yeah. So if they had great success, if NIL is proven to just throwing bags of cash works and wins championships, I think Notre Dame will get a little bit more dangerous with it. But the framework that they have now is great. But like anything else, it's going to continue to evolve.
Andrew Gilmore said, Tim, who's the best QB in the class? Arch Manning, Nelson, or Dante Moore? Andrew, really appreciate the super chat. Tim, what do you think?
Oh, I've said all along, I'm a Nelson fan. He's a stud. Nothing like a giant, tall quarterback that could throw 80 yards. I love him.
Yep, that's the 5-star quarterback going to USC. Andrew, really appreciate the super chat. Shy Sandman again says, are high-profile decommits bad PR? Did Kelly have something with not overreaching?
So yes, it's bad PR. I think it for 15 minutes until it just gets passed up in the news cycle. I think what he's asking, did Kelly have something with not overreaching? That's what I've been talking about ad nauseum since I've been on air here, is that, Kelly wouldn't step outside of his comfort zone to go after an elite 5-star type kid. Whereas even if Freeman, who was that running back that we brought up, Tim, from Florida, came on a visit, Richard Young.
Richard Young.
So in no way in hell.
No way.
Brian Kelly even sent that kid a text message, and we got an athlete like that to campus. I mean, I bet my life savings on it that Brian Kelly would have done that. So
got an OV.
Come again?
5 OVs. They got one of his 5 officials. It was really impressive.
I love it. So I think that's what the question is asking, with not overreaching. And it was Kelly who didn't want to get out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
It goes back to what I'm talking about. He's recruiting kids that whose parents belong to country clubs, and that's who Kelly was comfortable with. And it's like now we're really starting to mix it up. And again, it's get kids with a little bit of fire in their guts.
I love this discussion. I want to pop up Charles Jagusah. This is Notre Dame has to land Charles Jagusah every single year, right? They have to. The Charles Jagusahs and the Drake Bowens of the world, you're super nice Midwest kids, high academic.
Great interviews for you.
Great interviews for me. Love these kids to death. Notre Dame has to land them. And for the people talking about no 5 stars, I mean, On3 does have him as a 5-star. So I will say that at least On3 has one Notre Dame recruit listed as a 5-star.
I'll say this about Charles Jagusah, one of my favorite players in the class, future first-round pick. Just like, again, Tim, like when I'm evaluating kids, like a kid with a big, thick neck like that, he's going to be comfortable with contact. He's put time in the weight room. I don't know if a kid like Jagusah doesn't go to a lot of Rivals camps or ESPN camps, he doesn't do the camp circuit, that's going to affect his ratings. But in terms of his film, offensively and defensively, this is a 5-star kid.
Yeah. Yes. It hasn't affected it according to On3. He's been the number 1 tackle for a while. I mean,
so how could he not be a 5-star? It's ridiculous. I think this kid could play early I think he will play early as a guard. And then I think eventually he'll kick out to tackle, Tim. But I mean, this kid could play defense just because of the size and like the flexibility, the athleticism. I love him.
Oh, I'm just laughing because this film, he's just, I mean, that's going back to like competition. He's the ultimate competitor because he competes his butt off. Like at wrestling, he's never lost in wrestling, right? I think the last couple of years, state champion. He's a freak. He is a competitive monster, if you want to say that. You know, he gets after it. He's one of the meanest dudes you've seen on film. So, you know, you brought up that Goolsby. I know you and I were texting about that this past week about some of these dudes that just jump out on film, how just violent they are, violent in just their physicality, point of attack, their aggressiveness. You know, you mentioned Drake Bowen. You know, you've been chatting with him on Twitter. I mean, the guy's a two-way guy, never comes off the field.
It's incredible. You know, it really is incredible.
The Butkus Award winner for high school. So it's like, how the heck is he not a 5-star? Wasn't he before? And he's dropped in everything, which makes no sense. He's an elite baseball player, Mike Singer knows, right? He has like Major League Baseball talent. So that means you are a monster competitor. You know,
so
my favorite player. If we're going to
spin, sorry, Singer, go ahead, buddy.
No, go for it. No, I was going to. Another one real quick off the top of my head is Christian Gray. I love that guy. I mean, that guy, and he's fallen a little bit in the rankings, and he's a stud. Playing in one of the hottest levels in the country down there in the St. Louis Catholic. So a stud.
Well, when we spin through some, let's get some semblance of order here, gentlemen.
Sorry.
So before we move on past Charles, my notes, I said nimble, thick neck, and he's a bully. To your point, Tim.
Yes.
I said he's barrel chested with an ass. So hear me out, Tim. You're a football coach. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Natural power. And my fun comp when I go through these, they're fun comps, right? Is Blake Fisher. I think in that the athleticism there, I think Charles has better feet than Blake does, but Blake is probably just a slightly just bigger kid. I mean, Blake is a mountain of a man. But that's kind of my fun comp for Charles Jaggerson. I don't know how he doesn't play early. I just don't. You know, I think he's in some sort of a rotation. Should be starting as a sophomore. I mean, he's there, dude. He's there.
Yeah. Real quick on that. I went back 20 years on with all the rankings, looking at the offensive line rankings. Charles Jagasaw is the third highest ranked O-line in these rankings. You got Sam Young, who went in the NFL, was top 10. You got Tommy Kramer's in the NFL now. Jagasaw, and then the next two behind him in the rankings, Quentin Nelson, Blake Fisher, the 5 highest ranked Notre Dame linemen in the last 20 years. So,
I'd say
that's 5 dudes right there.
Sam Young was more of a tactician. I don't think Sam Young was a killer in the way that Charles is.
No, not like Charles.
We can move on, Mike. I maybe spend 5 minutes on a kid, you know?
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up Jagasaw and Bowen to say, like, these are recruits that Notre Dame should, like, typically win. But I do feel like for Notre Dame to take the next step, they got to get a kid who fits Notre Dame's profile, but like typically the SEC goes out and gets them over Notre Dame. And to me, the perfect example is Jeremiah Love. Outstanding student. I talked to his dad this week, and he's like, listen, Texas A&M came after him even after he committed to Notre Dame, but my son is so excited about his studies at Notre Dame. To have like Charles Jagasaw is a sweet Midwest kid who's just Notre Dame through and through. Jeremiah Love has got a little bit more dog in him. Also a very nice young man and a very smart young man. But like Jeremiah Love looks like an SEC running back, right? So Jeremiah Love is the perfect example for me of a player who Notre Dame's ceiling as a program increases because of Marcus Freeman and the staff. They can now go get Jeremiah Love. I think this is kind of the blueprint.
Mike, that's a great segue there. And I cut the film on, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, this isn't a kid that historically speaking, for a number of reasons, Notre Dame wouldn't have went after as hard. But yeah, with Freeman and his charisma, the confidence, the energy, you land him. So I'd love to see this kid's film. The fun comp for me here, fellas, Tim. I watched the film like 2-3 times. The first time I'm like, not so much the first couple clips. There's a clip at 1:30 after the first 2 runs, but I see Adrian Peterson, and these are fun comps, folks, right? It's just having fun. Chit-chatting football, right? I see Adrian Peterson, and then I watched it the second, third time, and I'm like, he's kind of a hybrid of Adrian Peterson and Alvin Kamara. Like he makes it look so easy, like a Kamara does, but he runs confidently, kind of like an Adrian Peterson. I put when he runs the ball, he looks like LeBron taking it to the rim. I mean, just like the level of determination in terms of the way his running style is. But yeah, this kid's elite.
Oh yeah, I mean, Mike saw him live this year. I know Mike sent me some video clips of him when he went down there. That was a heck of football. There was a lot of Division I talent on that game. Mike went and watched. He's an SEC running back. To me, I mean, Josh Adams was an SEC running back, but man, he looks like the way Josh Adams ran in 2017 behind that great offensive line.
This kid would run circles. Run that back, Mike.
Look at him.
Josh Adams was stiffer than a board. Josh Adams,
no, but he could take off and run in some of his
he's running through
zones.
4 yard. Yeah, this kid would run circles around. Josh Adams can't do that. That dead leg, that's rare.
No, but I'm just talking about some of these. When he runs outside zone, he looks like Josh Adams was a stud in 2017. That's what he reminds me of there. But no, I love the Kamara one, the way he runs and has that wiggle like Alvin Kamara. Most definitely, I really like that.
Yeah, the stop and start, the ability to drop his weight.
Well, this goes back just real quick on this year's offense. You know, I know everyone loves Estime and Diggs and stuff like that. They have zero big runs this year. This offense, Notre Dame's got to plod and plod and plod. They don't have a dude that takes it. And, you know, I hate to use it as an example, but you watch Michigan when they boat raced Ohio State, it was because they had running back. They had Edwards, the guy who could cut, break it, and go one-on-one. And that's what Reese and Freeman have talked so much about when they run inside zone and duo, and it's block on block and block and kick outs with the tight end. It's going to come down to the running back making a one-on-one move with the DB. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame does not make those plays this year. They just have not.
Yeah.
He's a freak show.
Yeah.
Look at I mean, you're just watching somebody that's physically gifted. It's just, they're gifted.
Yes.
I want to see if I can find some of his senior film. I was at the game.
I couldn't find it, Mike.
They played SLU. So yeah, this is the game I was at.
That's the Ryan Wingo school, right?
This is just single game. So yeah, this is against Ryan Wingo's.
So much talent out there.
2024 receiver, yeah. And Jeremiah McClellan is a 2024 receiver who is very good friends with Love. But this run was just that. So now we got
Adrian Peterson.
Adrian Peterson. Yeah, AP or Marshawn Lynch there. Where am I at? Well, there's old Singer.
But the measurables, like the height, the length, he's a slightly bow-legged. I mean, he just reminds me of Adrian Peterson. It just does.
Here's a great side note. Probably a good bit of people don't know this. He doesn't have much wear and tear.
No.
Drake Bowen ran the ball twice. I think about 2.5 times more than Jeremiah Love. Bowen had something like 240 carries. Love, I believe, only barely eclipsed like 100. Yeah. So they had 2 other really good running backs at CBC. Yeah. So I think at times Love was probably frustrated. Like, why am I not getting the ball more? And of course they're blowing out teams, but still he's sharing the rock a lot. But it's a blessing, honestly, that he doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on his body. Do you think that's a real thing, Mike, or is it's not a big deal?
Singer, rewind that back 20 seconds. Look at this stiff arm in the box. It's just holy moly. But hey, real quick on that, Singer, when he committed, remember we're like, well, look at that stiff arm right there. That's just straight power. He just flatbacks a middle linebacker. But that's when he committed. He only had 90 carries as a junior. So you're definitely right about wear and tear.
Ghouls?
Yeah. I think it's a thing.
Wait. Look at your boy right here. There he is. That's not a good look. That's not a good look, Singer. If that's what you look like at these games, I need a stylist or something.
How about the clips?
Good God. All right, continue, Goolsby. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think wear and tear is a thing, but I mean, if you're a 5-star kid in high school, it's like, yeah, it's definitely a plus. It doesn't move the needle that much for me personally.
Yeah,
but I mean, my only critique of Love, if there is one, he doesn't seem to have elite top end speed. But this is a true running back to me. I think oftentimes we're like, oh, well, we get this kid, and he could do this as a slot, and he could do this. You know, we could. No, just give me a freaking running back.
Yeah, that's the ball. Yeah, give him the ball. Give him the ball. He's a difference maker.
So when I was talking to some Notre Dame sources here in the past week about like, hey, who can you see? And this is actually ties into a super chat from earlier. Which 23 recruit will have the biggest impact next year? I'm going to give my answer right now, and it's Jaden Greathouse. Not only is he coming in at a position of need, right? I mean, you don't need to, like some positions, no freshman's going to come in and start right away. Like there's not going to be a left tackle that comes in and starts right away. You could be a wide receiver and get a lot of playing time at Notre Dame. And again, my sources are really high on Jaden Greathouse from Austin Westlake. What I've been saying about him for a long time is exactly what the Notre Dame staff said today, specifically Tommy Rees said, like physically, and with his experience, he's coming in, he's polished was the word that Tommy Rees used. So I'm also going to see if he has senior season clips. Otherwise, we will just watch junior tape. But would you guys agree with me that, of the Notre Dame recruits, like he is kind of the guy that makes the most sense as someone to play right away?
I'll jump on that. Reese talked about that today. He highlighted him and Rico Flores as two guys that are coming from elite high school programs, elite high school coaching. They know how to run routes. They know how to do all the little small things already because that's the level they play out there at those two great high schools, especially Rico Flores. Folsom's a big time high school up there in Northern California. So these two guys, those two guys just coming where they're from, the reps that they've had at their high school, I would definitely put those two guys 1A, 1B.
No, I would agree. I mean, Greathouse absolutely has like the lowest floor.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like what's left. And you see the kid like in shorts, he's got thighs. I mean, he's like, I don't even know if he needs to spend any time in the weight room. Like it's almost like as if he's a finished product. It's true. But yeah, great player. It's always nice to finally see. Like you go back to like a Colsey, and this isn't a knock on Deion Colsey, but going back from what I can recall, like with his senior film, it was just all go balls, just deep ball, deep ball, deep ball. So with both Rico Flores and Greathouse, I mean, we don't have like go back. Like, do we have a kid on our Tim? Do we have a receiver not named Tobias Merriweather on our roster that can make that catch? Like
that was unbelievable catch. Seriously, in between two dudes and just went up and just grabbed it. Just grabbed it.
Junior film, by the way.
Yeah. His senior film, he's got punt returns this year I've seen online. He's had a heck of a senior year. But no, you're right. That
you see a kid like this work through the route tree, high level of competition coming out of Texas, willing blocker, super physical, absolutely should get on the
well, that's been when you're talking about this year's,
field early.
Well, that's the thing with Lorenzo Styles after 2 years. It's like talented, unbelievable athlete. But when's he going to make a play like that highlight right there? Just ball out, go up and get the ball, take over a play where he's just the baddest dude on the field. And Notre Dame needs those guys. That's going back to Greathouse, Love, these skill guys. There's some dudes coming into South Bend that that Notre Dame needs big time. Absolutely,
yeah, great get.
Yeah, I want to go through a linebacker in Jaden Osbury.
This is my wild card. I don't get this one.
When I talk about Jeremiah Love, right, like this is the kind of guy that Notre Dame needs to continue to hit on. Another high academic kid with some shit to him. Jaden Osbury, I think fits that pretty well, Goolsby.
I would agree. Yeah, taking him out of Brian Kelly's backyard. I'm with you though, Tim, on this one. My first line here, Tim, on my notes: trust the offers.
True.
Like, you look at the kid's offer sheet. I don't pretend to know more than these coaches in terms of evaluating film and having access to all the intel and data that they do. So I say trust the film. He is an undersized kid. He's going to be a will.
Yeah. He's a mean dude. When you watch, he's a mean dude. That's the thing that's like, but he's 6 foot, 195, 200 pounds. It's like, where does that get you on the field at Notre Dame? That's
if you're listed at 6 foot, Tim, are you really 5'11", right? But then I've heard reports that he's like pushing 6'1", 6'2" now. I don't know.
Really?
The size, if he's a little on the smaller side, the size doesn't bother me. I liked his film more the first time I saw it when he committed than I do now. But across the board with this class, I mean, outside of your offensive lineman, you see speed, you see range, And this kid's got that kind of in spades and seems like a really smart, high compete level of kid.
That I'll agree. I'll agree with all that. I mean, that's the thing when I watch him, it's like he is physical as could be. He swarms the ball like crazy. That's the thing. He's got some senior film out there I've hunted down, and the dude flies like he's relentless to the football. I mean, look at the Final Four right here that Mike's got highlighted on. I mean, there's four defenses that get after it. So it's that. Where's he going to be? Where's if he is still growing and he's going to be 6'2", 225 or whatever it is down the road, legit. If he's 6 foot 200, that's the thing. We don't know officially, but
6 foot 212 is what Notre Dame announced today, and they're usually they don't bullshit.
Pretty
that,
good.
So
he's like
I'm
that.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, man. I don't know, but we were talking about if Notre Dame's going to try and convert to this wonky. Mike, pull up another kid while we're talking.
Yeah, I got you.
Throw a dart on the board. But if we're going to try and play in this 3-3 stack defense, I mean, you can't have a 220-pound, 6 foot, 220-pound kid taking on blocks. I mean, unless that's your Ramirez. Don't make any sense. He's taking on guys that have 100 pounds on him.
Unless that's the Leofow where he's just going to blitz like a son of a gun and use his instincts and try and squeeze, but still he's got to squeeze into holes that small. He's a heck of a high school football player. His film is outstanding. Where does he fit into Notre Dame? That's why I said he's my one wild card in this class where I really don't know.
All right, folks, definitely appreciate you joining us and sticking around as long as you have. If you're just joining us, make sure you rewind.
I want to watch some ball, dude. I put some effort into this, Mike.
Oh yeah, we have plenty. We're gonna go for a little bit longer, but just wanted to address. Hey, if you're just joining us, we did talk to Brady Quinn earlier in the show. We talked some Peyton Bowen, and let's just go through a couple quick super chats. ND Nation says, "Does Notre Dame take Peyton Bowen if he changes his mind?" I would absolutely.
Why would you say no, ND Nation? Why would you say no? Because your feelings got hurt?
Like we said earlier.
By a 17-year-old kid?
Yeah, it's recruiting, man. It's
wild.
It's
overreaction.
Open arms, Peyton.
We are going to go through these quickly. Any super chats you guys drop in, we're going to go through them quickly because we want to go through these players. Andrew says, should we change our rule around official visits for commits? How can we flip a guy committed to another school who can't afford to fly to South Bend? So basically, Notre Dame has their little policy. If you are committed here, you can't go OV elsewhere. And, to not be hypocritical, and I think it's a strategy play for if you're committed elsewhere, you can't take an OV here. I think it kind of just expedites what is likely to happen. Yeah, at least that's a theory. But any thoughts on this real quick, Ghouls?
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's Freeman's policy. Yeah, it's Freeman's policy. Let him do what he wants. He signed a top 10 class, so he kind of knows what he knows what he wants, and he knows the guys he wants to go after, and he doesn't want guys floating around taking trips all over the country. So why waste time?
All right, Renee Martinez drops super chat and says, Goolsby, how you define Freeman recruiting is on point. Go Irish. And I'm going to go back to the second part of the super chat, which 23 recruit will be the diamond in the rough. I don't know if you can call this guy we're about to talk about a diamond in the rough because, I mean, he is a bona fide 4-star player now, and he did have some big-time offers, but going into his senior season, Brandon Hillman held one offer, Norfolk State, and then ended up with North Carolina, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, USC. So, again, I don't know if you can call him a diamond in the rough. Al Golden was asked, hey, where do you see him playing? I've actually said Rover. I said that when we talked about commitment. I could see that as a position. Golden said that today, made me feel smart, which it doesn't happen too often, but you see him playing quarterback, right? This is offensive tape we're watching right now. I mean, running back, he could play receiver, safety, Rover, Goolsby. Where do you like him the most?
Go to Tim first.
Tim?
I've said since day one, play the kid on defense. Put him at defense. The kid is fast as could be. His safety film is physical, violent. I mean, I told Goolsby, I was like, he's like Jerome Sapp, who he played with, or Glenn Earl with his height. He's going to come lay the hat on you. I love him on D. Notre Dame's got some dudes on offense. Play him on defense. Notre Dame needs more nasty Xavier Watts, for example. Ever since he moved to defense, I know Goolsby and I have 1,000 texts talking about Watts. More physicality at some of those skill positions on defense, and that's where I would play him.
Yeah, I want to skip ahead and see if I can find him on defense, but so far it's just all offense. Go ahead, Goolsby.
Yeah, I'm more on the defensive side of the ball myself with him. But I could see him being kind of a gadget guy. It's just a kid like this to me that's so athletic, Tim. It's just going to come down to the mental piece. What sticks quicker? Does just making people miss on offense, and I could see him kind of being a bubble screen guy, make you miss, kind of a Deebo Samuel type role for him on the offensive side, and then just what computes for him the quickest.
Yeah. I'm with you.
That's what it's to me. That's what it's going to come down to. But that's,
I think that play netted him scholarship offers. This hit.
Yes.
I'm sorry for folks listening on podcasts. You got to get over to YouTube.
Look at that.
That netted him offers.
He does it so many times. I just love this guy on defense, and I love that Golden talked about that today. He is. I'm telling you, man. He's going to play defense. He is physical as hell.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, which I am, Tim, I would tend to agree with you. Yeah,
Just
downhill. But it's interesting because you talk about that safety position. So it's a lot like Adon Schuler. So much of what you see is him coming down and playing alleys and filling and popping people, but we don't see a lot of him, playing cover one, playing cover two, playing over the top coverage. So that's you cannot put a safety in the game, Tim, unless he understands coverage. This guy understands how to come downhill and crack skulls. Well, he's got that in his DNA, but can we implement the coverage piece? So that time will tell. That's the huge. That's a touchdown, right? I mean, he just gave up a touchdown in a real game with a real quarterback. And again, he's got his eyes in the backfield, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
fun kid to watch him develop over the next couple of years. Absolutely.
Well, talking about downhill, that's Ben Minich, the kid out of Ohio, the same thing. When he committed, I'm like, yeah, he looks like a in the box nickel dime strong safety type of guy to me, because didn't see him playing over the top so much. But that's Peyton Bowen. Bowen will play deep as deep you want him to be and go roam and make plays. Or Minich, Schuler, these guys are going to come lay the hat down in the box. So that if somehow Notre Dame and Freeman and these guys could swing Bowen back, because Bowen was the key. Bowen's your deep guy. Bowen's your Hamilton. He's going to just play the whole entire field while these other dudes fill the alleys and knock hats. So Notre Dame needs that deep safety to just roam, and that's my thing when I'm looking at film. You want to see that duality from that safety position. I love you coming downhill and making plays in high school. I love to see it. But I need this. I really like ideally to see you check that box in coverage. You see it with a Peyton Bowen. You saw it with a Kyle Hamilton. Yep.
So
I think that's why Golden mentioned. I mean, look at the first thing Al Golden mentioned was Rover. He already knows he's in the box, going to hit, less teaching. Don't worry about coverage checks off if is it a post or a corner route. Your ass is in the box. So I think they've already kind of figuring that out pretty quick.
Someone even talked about with Hillman, hey, what about quarterback? I mean, I did not mention quarterback. That's at least they're going to give him a shot at quarterback. So, hey, why not?
He's an athlete.
But football.
He's a hell of a football player. He's a really good football player.
Speaking of a hell of a football player who's a really good athlete and plays both sides of the ball, Micah Bell.
Yeah.
Quite the rankings disparities here. On 3 Zone rankings, him as a 3-star, whereas ESPN has him high as the number 109 overall player nationally. Only a couple minutes of senior film, but I mean, he had a really good year, but mainly plays running back. So it might be a little bit of a transition for him going full-time at corner, but his speed is electric, Goolsby.
Yeah, I think that's a theme with this class. I think in Brian Kelly's, when I started really paying attention doing this show with you, Singer, like Kelly always seemed to kind of go for length, right? Which is super in vogue. I totally get it, but there was a missing speed element. I think with Freeman's class, you've got kids that compete and kids that can flat out run. And it's just like we talk about with like offensive linemen, with corners. Give me the biggest, best athlete I can get, Tim. Give me the biggest, best athlete at these positions, fill the room up, and then the cream's going to rise to the top.
I mean,
that's what we got here.
I mean, you're talking about an athlete. I mean, the guy you played with, Vontez Duff. He could play. Vontez could play running back, corner.
It's a great comp,
guy.
dude. He actually he moves a little bit like him. I can see
the
that.
way exactly a little square. The way he's square. I mean, Vontez. I mean, you played with him. Obviously, he was a stud athlete, playmaker. That's the other thing is
no technique.
Make plays.
He ran 4.34. So it was just like,
which is Micah Bell. And no, you're right. And it's like, go make plays. And that's the thing. I mean, that's obviously your defense was all about playmaking in 0-2. And it's like, there's no playmaking, still in the secondary, no ball hawks and tip passes, the swarms, all the things you and I have talked so much about. So when you get guys with speed all over the place and you have a corner that can run a 4.3, plays are going to be made just because of the athleticism on that field.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of talking about big picture with this class, guys, putting you on the spot a little bit, but is there one area that maybe you're not too fired about, maybe a little bit disappointed that, hey, Notre Dame didn't do this? And then if you want to go the opposite way, or give me both, an area that Notre Dame really excelled and exceeded your expectations. Either of you have any thoughts on that right away?
I can jump in. I was a little disappointed in the tight end class. I'm not blown away by Cooper Flanagan. I'm just not. And it's just like, with the injury to Eli Raridan, who I believe was kind of slotted in to be the next Michael Mayer. That's kind of that's sort of up in the air. I'm just always I just feel like us being Notre Dame, Tim, we can go get pretty much any tight end we want. I mean, we are a kid in a candy store. And I was just like, okay, I like Cooper Flanagan, but I wasn't wowed. There was not a lot of wow factor there. So that was something I personally was looking forward to. And there's a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah. I mean, my first thing with Flanagan is I'm a De La Salle guy. So anytime you get a De La Salle guy, Notre Dame has had not one De La Salle guy ever showed up to Notre Dame that has failed. But Taylor, right. Derek Landry, you've played with, Foskey. It's like, who else am I missing? I mean, you got three major. I'm De La Salle. I mean, they had a safety last year, Barry, who was one of the premier players in the country, went to Michigan. I'm like, how the heck did Notre Dame not offer this guy? So Notre Dame, go to De La Salle every year, pick one. So Flanagan, the thing with him, and Mike could talk about this, is there's some old dog down in Tuscaloosa that just wanted him so bad all year long. Nick Saban just wanted Cooper Flanagan like crazy. So physical athlete. I mean, he can play D end as well. So, but no, I hear what you're saying as far as the big time tight ends. It seemed like they really just focused on him pretty early, because he had the big spring, I think his 7-on-7 camps, and you saw him just blow up down there in some of the camp circuits. And his 7-on-7 film was crazy. Some of the catches he made. Good football player, I feel. Big kid.
No, I'm with you. You.
I just love De La Salle. Yeah. No, but I know what you're saying as far as the Mayer. Mayer, but that's also Notre Dame. They really haven't had the high-end tight end really, outside of Mayer. Some of these other guys, Barong, Evans, they're all ranked in the 10, 15 range.
Well, that's why I answered, Tim. That's why I answered the question.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's like we could go get anybody, and we always get guys like they're clones of one another. They're all clones.
I agree. It's like you had Rudolph, who was number one. You've had Komet, Brock Wright, who just scored the big touchdown. Those were the top two tight ends in the country that year. They got in the same class. I hear you, and that's been kind of a little interesting at times with Notre Dame recruiting, where they've gotten these guys in the 10 to 12 positional rankings instead of getting the elite 6'5" freakazoid. I completely agree.
Yeah, for me, I mean, when you go through each position, it's really darn good. The obvious is Viper, that Notre Dame lost Keon Keeley and didn't replace him with anyone. At least like with Peyton Bowen, right? Who knows? Maybe he signs back to flips back to Notre Dame. We will see. But if Notre Dame doesn't land him, at least you have 2 4-stars in Ben Minnick and Don Schuler. Like those guys.
Tim, do you have a Viper in the class? And I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I mean, I think I do. Obviously, oh God, when I think Viper, sometimes I always look at the 2 years, the previous 2 years. So it's like, was Freeman and Golden comfortable knowing, okay, we didn't get Keon Keeley. Some of these other Vipers Singer had written about are already committed to Tennessee, and some of these other guys they started to look at late. So were they, I'm looking at as a coach, were they comfortable in, we have Tuialamaka, we have Burnham, we have Gobira. Are we going to find our next man in out of that 2022 class? So
I got a profile pulled up. I think this is where you're going, Goolsby. What do you think? For your Viper?
Preston Zinter is my Viper. There you go.
Yeah, Zinter.
Fun. Hey, Tim, let's get into the
agree.
film, Mike. Fun comp here, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Vrabel. Watch the film.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Really smooth athlete. I put abnormally long arms, like the kid's got vines for arms. Really nice acceleration.
Junior film here.
Okay.
That's funny you say that, Goolsby. That's one of the first things I noticed watching him was just his long as to be.
Long. Yeah.
He hell of a wide receiver. And then he's played Mike, he's played end, he's been in a 3-point stance, he's been all over the place. Very, very athletic. So that's the other thing where they have these 22 guys. They have these linebackers. That's why I think they're starting to develop this defense out of a 3-3 mindset where that Viper is really an inside, is that hybrid backer guy. Foskey, they knew they couldn't do what they really, I think, wanted to do. He's pretty much pigeonholed as that Justin Tuck, fourth rusher. They had it. Because remember last year, they put Foskey at Mike in the 3-3. And they're like, what the hell are we doing?
Which wasn't fair to Foskey.
To him. Exactly. And he never did that this year.
With Zinter, you can do a lot more in coverage.
Yes. Same thing with Burnham.
This is Viper, right? He's playing a Viper.
Yes.
That's a weak side end stand up. There it is.
No, you're right.
Again,
Look how long.
That's why I go like a Mike Vrabel. Like Mike Vrabel's not going to wow you with burst or like anything kind of freakish athletic traits, but like, damn, he's really good at pretty much everything on the defensive side of the ball. And hell, he even played tight end. Obviously,
look at him snagging this ball.
Oh, wide receiver.
Damn, he looks good.
That's going back to Rankins. Like you watch him, it's like it's not a 3-star dude, man. He is a hell of an athlete at multiple positions.
Well, you said
I made that Vrabel comp, not even realizing he was from the Boston area. I didn't even New England area.
You say follow the offers. He had Georgia, LSU.
Yes,
he had a lot of big boys.
Michigan. His offer list was crazy.
His brother was an offensive lineman at Michigan. Yeah, I'm having a really difficult time picking my Joe Alt for this class. Zinter has been the leader in the clubhouse for a while. I don't know. There's something about this kid. He's going to be really good.
Well, speaking of Alt, that would be my biggest miss. Obviously, Viper is just a true left tackle, unless they're just, once again, you follow back-to-back classes as you're building a team. Is it Emil Wagner? That's our guy. Do they love him?
We need to check on Emil and see where's that weight at, right? I mean, is he
that's the key.
Yeah.
He traveled to the Ohio State. He made the 2 deep for the Ohio State game. Billy Schroff was the other freshman, made it for the SC game. So you got those 2 freshmen made travel squads this year, which is nice to see. But that's the big weakness of the O-line's fit. Going back to Goolsby's thing about competition and physicality, those 5 guys are mean and nasty as hell. But no, just true, ass kicking, kick stepping, left tackle who could just own that edge. Once if Joe Alt leaves here in the next 9 months, 10 months, whatever the heck the time frame is. So,
who else you want to talk about, Goolsby?
We could talk about these are notes. I mean, I got Sullivan, Absher, Chris Tarek, Schuler.
I can name the players.
I'll pass over Minich. Maybe Drake Bowen. Drake Bowen's fun to talk about.
Not Drake Bowen?
Well,
would love to.
Tim, unless you got
No. We'll go. We'll talk about my favorite kid in a few minutes. In.
Oh, who's yours, Tim? Jump in.
Oh, mine is. There's no film. You got to hunt. You got to hunt for this guy's film. Brendan Vernon is my guy. I love this guy. He is freaking crazy. His interview, by the way, today I saw his signing ceremony. I saw it on Twitter. The local news did an interview with him. By the way, he's shaved his head. He shaved his head. Have you seen his awesome interview? I got a text. I'll find it when we're done. I'll text you. Yeah. He gave this interview, and it's just, my God, man, I want 20 of these guys on the football team. He's a stud. Just like, they're trying to, oh man, you're this recruit going to Notre Dame. He's like, I don't give a damn. I'm just going to go play ball. It's like,
he's all ball.
Talking about the All-American game. And he's like, well, if the coaches promised you anything, they're like, yeah, a uniform, a t-shirt. And his quote was, I'm going to make these coaches have to play me. He's like, I'm not showing up till June 5th. He says, I graduate June 5th. I'm in my car and I'm moving into South Bend on June 5th. As soon as he gets his diploma, he's on the car, he said, in a few minutes. And he says, I'm going to make those guys play me as a freshman. They're going to see.
So what is he? So what is he, Tim? Is he a 3-tech? Is he a strong side defensive end? What is he?
He's going to be that wide side 5-tech, that wide side C-gap player. That's what I see. I think they're going to play him there to start, especially if they're doing this tweaking, this type of 3-man hybrid front with that stand-up Viper. You're really only playing 3 down guys. So I would love to see him playing that 5-tech so you can move Riley Mills back inside with his size. And I don't know, when I see Brendan Vernon, I mean, one of my favorite players is, one of my wife's good friends in college as well, was Anthony Weaver. And Anthony Weaver was a true freshman starter on that 98 team, that you played with, back in 2000. And I see him being that type of physical, that just grinder, just stud playing the C-gap.
Yeah. Great with the hands.
Yes.
Weaver was a technical whiz. The first guy that I was ever around where I was like, okay, there's like an art to this in terms of.
So I started as a true freshman.
Yeah.
So
he's coaching in the NFL now.
Yep.
That was sophomore tape, right? That's the most recent that's on Huddle. He was probably 240 soaking wet or something. Now he's like 290. He's 285, 290, 295, somewhere in that realm. I can see what Notre Dame announced him at today.
I just love that he had short hair and a ton of earrings in his ears. He was ready to rock and roll.
They listed him at 6'4", 250, but there ain't no way in hell. So I need what was that? 6'4", 250. That to me, I think he could beef up and be a force. I think he could be like a 3-tech / nose hybrid guy. Like I think he's a freak.
Yeah, he's a 6 foot. I mean, going back to old Goolsby's buddies, he's a 6'4" Derek Landry. He's relentless. I've seen his senior film on Twitter and some of the news broadcasts. I've hunted some stuff just to watch some highlights. He is, telling you, man, when I saw him play in September, he is relentless.
I'm going with you on this, Singer, because I don't see.
It's a damn miracle.
Two things. I'll make you right here, Tim. So he basically says, I'm going to make the coaches play me. So if the coaches say, well, hey, Brennan, I need you at 290. Done, coach.
Yeah.
Done. I'll be there and give me 6 months. I'll get there. I don't see the twitch or like the overall athleticism to play on the edge.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I think he's much better. So if you can get a 290, if he's 250 in that picture and a clean 250, I make him a little sloppy, get him to 305, and then kick him down inside to a 3 technique. And then now you've got a really great athlete at 3 technique versus a limited guy on the edge.
Yes. No, I mean, but he's going to play somewhere. I don't even care where it is. I just want to see him. Yeah, I just love mean dudes, and he is mean and violent. And there's one play I think I told Goolsby about. I saw on Twitter. It's like 4th and 1, teams going for it, and he literally pushed one entire side of the offensive line. They're all foot to foot, and he just bull rushed 3 dudes backwards, and the offensive guard made the tackle. It's like that's the dude Notre Dame needs up front, is some relentless, mean dudes right there.
Yeah, I'm upset about this 6'5", 250 listing because I don't think
there's no way
that this guy right here is not 250 pounds.
So, Mike, are we saying that in that photo he's 280?
I don't have the rest of the photo, but I'm telling you, the dude's massive.
So answer the question. In that photo,
yes, I think
do you believe he's 280?
Yes.
Okay, well then he can get to 310, no problem.
Okay.
Oh, he's gonna be
no problem.
I got it. I got the picture. The full.
Yeah, if he's 280-ish or whatnot now, oh god, yeah. Well, he's gonna get in that Notre Dame weight room and all those free mashed potatoes and steaks. He's gonna be
and the thing is, I don't know if people
look at this.
There's no way he's 250.
He's not only taking the mashed potatoes, he's going to take everyone else's steaks, right? I mean, he is saying, "Give me your steak," and they'll say, "Okay, do you want some money with it too? Because you look like a man child." Like
If he only weighs 250, he's like 5'9" in that picture. Okay, so it's like
All right.
Yeah, so I think he's absolutely a banger on the inside.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
Let's go to Drake Bowen. 6'1.5", 233-pound. Again, I think just as an overall athlete, he is probably the best. I mean, you talk about him as a baseball player, could play infield, outfield, what he does on both sides of the ball. And these clips are just defensive. Goolsby, he won the Butkus Award, right, for high school. And I was told part of the reason for that is because he's a 233-pound linebacker, right? That's a little bit of a throwback linebacker. That's not a super modern day high school linebacker. That's
when I showed up to Notre Dame, I was 236.
Wow.
You know?
And that was hot minute ago. And that's not what linebackers showing up at right now. So that's part of the reason he won this award, because he is more of a Dick Butkus linebacker than, your traditional linebacker.
No doubt. And he's a worker. So if he's 230,
look at that.
So he's 230, playing both sides of the ball, doesn't come off the field, plays baseball. So once this kid gets a chance to really devote himself to the weight room, might he grow out of the Mike position? I mean, I remember Mickey Marotti, he told me when he was at Florida, they had to kick Tim Tebow just because of Tim's nature. He wanted to compete and be with his teammates, et cetera, lead. It's like, Tim, get out of the weight room.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to throw a ball. So it's like Drake's going to be one of those kids. And I mean that in the best way possible. But if he's going to show up at 230 and he's lean, right? I mean, he's got a six-pack. It's not like he's got baby fat. So it's like, Drake, you got to be mindful of that as you go through your college careers. Don't train yourself out of that athleticism that you have at this point in your career. My comp for him was like, he's a way more athletic junior Tui Alamaka.
Yes.
Way more athletic. And he got on the field. Junior got on the field as a true freshman.
Yes. No, that's perfect spot right there. Junior is a true old school Mike Backer. Drake could fly around. I mean, I'm rewatching these films and I'm thinking about some of the linebackers that were finalists and some of the linebackers ranked ahead of him and in the national rankings. And there's not a lot of dudes that run like him. The Texas kid, Hill, who Notre Dame had offered, I've seen his film. He doesn't run like Drake Bowen. I mean, he can close.
He can close.
Yeah. I really haven't watched Drake because he's been committed for like 5 years. And it's like, I haven't played it.
I think Drake's on staff actually at this point.
Dude, this. I mean, he is so damn good when you rewatch him and look at this. Look at that.
And he's comfortable. Yeah, he's comfortable walked out in coverage. And I'm just telling you, like that little, and that's just, what I was kind of messaging him on Twitter. It's like, do not change the way that you play football. Don't change for anybody, and that goes for this class across the board. Keep that level of shit to that showmanship. Yeah. Do not lose that, because that's, that level of compete. Like, you're not going to beat an Alabama. You're not going to beat a Georgia unless you bring that type of attitude to the field, and obviously with athleticism, but don't change.
Yeah, no, that fire. I mean, Singer could talk about this. You mentioned compete. His team, which I've learned about through the articles Mike's written about lately, is they play like multiple levels above their pay grade all year long, getting ready for the state playoffs, because he's down in one of the lower levels of Indiana. So that's that competitive nature where he's playing 5A teams and he's a 2A guy, and they're winning, with the way they play. So that's just very impressive, as I've learned about his high school, the level that he's at, and how hard they play up a level, which I think is awesome. So you're seeing a bunch of film, not against 2A talent. These are all upper level Indiana schools.
Yeah, so it's a 2A school, and he's usually playing against 4, 5, 6A teams.
Yeah.
And state champion as a junior, and then this past season, they fell in the state title game. I mean, I think he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Indiana last year. He's probably going to get that again. He's Mr. Football, Butkus Award. I mean, he's everything. When I talk about Preston Zinter, like, I want to give Zinter, this is my Joe Alt for this year. Drake Bowen's such an easy choice, but it's still hard. It's hard not to pick him because he's an outstanding player. We're going to wrap up soon. Maybe a couple more players. Goolsby, who else did you want to talk about?
Oh, I don't, I've got, I think you liked Sullivan Absher, Tim. Didn't you like him you kind of
his stance, man. Yeah. I love coaching
that funny
O-line.
offense he plays in.
I love coaching O-line. I just love seeing guys just getting in 3-point stances and just like, I'm just going to kick your ass for the next 60 minutes. And that's what his highlights are. The scary thing is, though, you never seen the guy pass block. So he is going to be doing a hell of a lot of drills with Watt, whoever the GA is next year and whatnot, kick stepping and punching like mad dog.
Yeah, I totally agree.
They got Joe Alt ready, and he was a tight end, so they're going to.
It goes back to what we were talking about, like give me the biggest, best athlete you can find. And my first note on him is he's a giant. Like he's a giant. And he's a little everything's a little, but look at the size of the kid. Crap. Everything's a little sloppy. He needs a couple years in the weight room.
He's an ass,
but he is a monster of a human being. Monster kid.
But that's going back to one of your statements earlier, Mike, is a bully. He is, I mean, seriously, when Notre Dame first offered him and Singer, I remember texting Singer, I was like, what's the chance? Oh, he's a Southern guy, Clemson, blah, blah, blah. Those types of things early on. And I'm just like, oh my God, he's my favorite offensive lineman just because just the way he just gets in his 3-point stance and this, veer attack, gets his butt up high and I'm just going to fire out and just root you out of the ground. And I was so pumped that he committed.
Stan has these guys in a very similar stance, kind of that right angle. But yeah, he's kind of like, he's a little sloppy with the technique, needs to play with a wider base, like kind of stops his feet. Yeah, like right there, like he needs to be on the blades of his feet or the insteps of his feet. But I think he's a kid that I'm going to kind of quietly be rooting for.
Yes.
As he continues to develop. I had to go back, like I'm watching film of Ty Chan from last year, Tim, like, because you tend to forget about these old linemen in particular.
Most definitely.
But boy, do we have a lot of kids like waiting in the wings, man. We got a lot of kids that are like, I feel like any of these kids you could be starting next year, save for our tackles.
No, you're right. It's funny you mentioned Chan. I was never a fan of him, and I was Mike, or maybe I saw when he went down to the Under Armour game or one of those All-Star games, and he was moved around multiple positions, and he was kicking the fanny out of some of these A&M 5-stars last year in the bowl practice. Like, oh my God.
He also got his fanny kicked a lot.
No, he did, but
just playing in Connecticut, Mike.
Yeah.
That's a huge adjustment.
Yeah.
And he was at the Groton School or whatever it is, a little fancy school out here in New England. So big world, but physical. Yeah. But talking about last year's guys, it's got to be Billy Schrauff, who's just, hopefully he's all ready to roll next year. That guard battle is going to be awesome. I can't wait for spring football.
But so Billy Schrauff, this is a fun comparison. So Billy Schrauff in a way was a lot like Great House this year. He was he's kind of complete as far as technique is concerned, just get a little bit stronger, but there wasn't a lot of work in terms of the technique of the position. Would you agree with that, Tim?
No, you're right. You're right. He was a baller. He was so damn physical in high school. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was ready to go, but he had that injury, with the end of spring or whenever it was last year. So, knocked him out. He wasn't ready for camp. But then, Howard Cross mentioned him the other day, just like, hey, what freshmen are good? He's like, Billy Schrauff. He's playing his next year. Get ready to watch him. He's a man. So that was exciting to hear.
Mike, I'm good, man. That's quite a few. Is there somebody you had ready teed up?
No.
It's almost 2 hours.
I think we've scratched the itch of going through some of these recruits, but we've got a long off season ahead of us. So we will definitely talk more about Notre Dame's 2023 recruiting class. So definitely stay locked into blueandgold.com, folks, over not only the next few hours, but the next, day, 2 days, 2 months. I mean, wall-to-wall coverage on everything going on with Notre Dame football, recruiting. And if you like men's basketball, women's basketball, hockey, baseball, we cover it all over on our website and our YouTube channel right here. All the football and football recruiting news, we have you covered. Podcast audience, love you, but always like to recommend, there's so much more content you're missing over on YouTube that we don't post on our podcast channel. So please do head over to our Blue and Gold YouTube channel. But yeah, that's going to do it for this National Signing Day show. For folks if you're still watching, Peyton Bowen has not signed with Oregon. We are waiting to kind of see what that ends up happening.
Mike, we're going to land him. We're going to land him. Yes, Tim, you haven't wavered throughout. We're going to land him.
I always thought they were going to get him because he never decommitted. How do you say no on National Signing Day when you've been committed for 11 and a half months? It makes no sense. So.
Happens all the time.
Oh.
Happens all the time.
It is recruiting.
Hey, from your lips to God's ears, but Tim, that logic is awful. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I disagree. But hey, from y'all's lips to God's ears.
Hey, let me just throw one thing out. Obviously, with baiting it, everyone gets gut punched. You lose great football players. I went back the last 20 years, everybody. The last 20 years, Notre Dame has signed only 9 top 10 classes, and Freeman has signed 2 in a row. So keep that in mind as you move forward. And as Mike Singers just said, getting ready for 2024. So I think Notre Dame's in good hands when it comes to getting football players now. Get these guys on the field and let's see what happens moving forward.
Dennis, appreciate the super chat. Everybody, appreciate you watching, listening, and consuming our content here at Blue and Gold. Appreciate you all. And as always, we'll catch you next time.
Got it.